Computer. Lights.
Good morning, everyone. Wow. Brent, you are like jumping the gun there. Like, you're on it. I think you've been here for at least 90% of them, if not more. I completely agree. I'm going to go on ahead and just in case. Let's see what our cat's joining here. So we were going to do Watercolor Wednesday, but then Cat got permission from their boss to join us. So you're still in Facebook jail for saying stab. Unreal, people. Unreal. Well, don't say stab from there then. Here we go. Bring up the music a little. Right? Watch YouTube ban you. You'll be like, now I'm on Twitch. That'd be funny. I'm hoping Brian will also join us because I intend to figure out today my goal. There's Cat.
I don't know how to show my screen with this. I've never used Restream before.
Well, you should
I
be.
have OBS.
Hello, Cat.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know how to get my screen up. I'm sorry.
It's all right. So down there on the gears settings down there at the bottom.
And Restream?
Yeah, you can just add OBS. And your OBS virtual camera.
I have that. That's what it's on.
Oh well, it's showing. Oh, all you need to do over there is start virtual camera on your OBS.
Oh. Oh, I see.
There.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm learning things today too.
Check
Oh,
you out. There you go.
get
So
me learning things.
yeah, perfect. So I'm hoping to completely and totally pick your brain on what you are doing right here.
What is
Here.
what is this madness?
Right? This is total magic. It's total magic. You're doing the thing.
Hi, VC Karen. What's up? So hi guys. I'm Kat. I make manga and I work for Global Comics, which is like a web hosting platform. And I use Clip Studio for like 99% of the stuff that I do. I will occasionally use Photoshop, just not really very often, but it just kind of depends on what I'm doing. What I have open right here is the story feature, and the story feature is exclusive to Clip Studio EX. And essentially, what it is it's a tool that allows us to like organize all of our pages. It's like a page manager. If I wanted to, I could move these pages around. Like I could take this set and I could move it to the end. It might take a second. There it goes. See, I just moved it. I can actually move my pages around. I'll take this one and I'll move it like all the way up here, just so you can see. Like I'm gonna take this last, and I moved it all the way up here. You can change the order of things. I could even go into story. Let's see, change page settings. I can go in and I can change the settings of all of my pages all at once. It's sort of like this strange combination of bridge and InDesign. It's fantastic. It's really cool. My favorite thing about this, let me fix my pages here. I have to fix everything really quick. Unfortunately, you can't Control Z this. You have to like manually put it back. That one goes here. Is the exporting feature. So if I wanted to, I can export multiple pages. I can do a batch export. I can do a 3D preview to check my crop lines, make sure everything's going to look good. I can export PDFs, which is a newer feature that they've added to the story feature.
Wow.
So yeah, everyone was complaining that we couldn't export PDFs directly. You would originally have to export like JPEGs, TIFFs, whatever, and then make your own PDF. Now you can go straight to PDF. You can also go straight to Kindle, straight to EPUB. So they have all kinds of really great things. And then the story feature also works for Webtoons. So if you're a Webtoons person, so let me go File, New.
Which I will be, because we're going to try to put out Bellatrix Rising in Webtoons format as well.
So when you go to create new, and you have, let's see,
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm actually sitting here with a blank screen.
Here we
so
go, Webtoon.
Maybe I should start with something like, how do I create new?
Yeah, so you would just go to File, New, and then you'll see two options for comic. You'll see one that looks like it kind of has like two pages kind of like not quite aligned with each other. So I decide that's Webtoon. If you hover over it, it'll say Webtoon. And you can set your width and your height. And your height is your total height. That's not like just your individual page height. You can set your width. So I know Webtoons is like 800 wide or something. So 800, you can set your resolution just like before. You can also set color. If you're working straight in monochrome, you can select that if you want to do grays, colors, whatever. And then over here on your right, this is the important part, is how many divisions do you want? So you can ask for how many divisions do you want? So for example, Webtoons requires like about 40 panels. So
Right.
with 40 panels, with the total height that we have, each page is going to be 500 tall. And that's too short. So this is where it gets a little mathy. Or you can say, oh, I want X number of pages. I want 40 panels. The total height. Oh goodness, there we go.
Oh,
You
there
can
we
kind of
go.
do
Okay, yeah.
both
So,
ways.
so the size that I seem to remember
Is like 800 by 1200 or something.
Yeah,
You can. So
800
if
by
you want
1250.
1250, okay. So we can do that. So we can go on the left and say we want 800 by 1250. And then if we click by number of pages, say we want 40 pages, it'll give you what your total height is, and that's the document that it'll make. So if I hit,
hang on real quick, I got to answer Brent.
no,
So
you're good.
Pepper really wants to do multicolored watercolors, and I was saying that since Kat's joining me, I was going to concentrate on Clip Studio because I've managed to capture Kat, and I can ask all of the questions that I have always wanted to ask and stuff. So he was like, "Well, I'll just wait till next week and do the watercolor thing." So next week we'll get him. We'll get him back on Friday for artist check-in, but we'll get watercolor Wednesday next Wednesday. So okay, sorry.
Okay. No, you're good. Interrupt me anytime.
That it like in this instance, yeah, and it's not George. So I noticed that in this instance, the thing that's really cool about this is if I set my number of page divisions for 16, it does the height of each page at 1250, let's say, because it's doing 690 by 20,000, right? Which I think is great because that works really well for what we're kind of doing here in the Webtoons thing. Because I think 690 by 1250 is what Webtoons said it's supposed you're supposed to do. But more importantly, I went and did a quick check, just going over and checking things like Shonen Jump Weekly and stuff like that. And it looks like each segment of a comic is about 16 pages with 2 segments per issue, so to speak, which makes 32 pages.
Yeah.
And then, however many issues, but each chapter seems to be about 16 pages. So I'm going to be doing Bellatrix in groups of 16 pages.
Okay, yeah, that works. I do mine in about 20 to 25, like a standard print. So usually what I do, I'm also planning on, since I'm submitting to Jump Rookie. Jump Rookie is a contest that they hold each month, and the editors will look through the works and they'll hand out stamps, which is like good story or good character design or like good artwork. Like they have these different stamps, and the top 10 are possibly eligible for serialization in Manga Plus, or sorry, Jump Plus.
Mhm.
Um, and the top one of each month is more than likely the one that's going to get the offer. And what's really cool is, well, it's a curse and not helpful, is the main gauge that they use is page views. So I'm going with the bigger chapters so that I've got more visual content. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
But you can only upload 3 episodes in each month. So the more pages you upload, and there's like you can only upload 50 at a time max. So
So tops 150 a month.
basically, yeah, like that's the most you could have is 150 pages. But you also need the stamps to be eligible. Like you need to have an editor actually like your work. So being in the top 10 doesn't promise you anything. It just like gives you better odds of being seen by an editor. So
Right.
like that's what I'm aiming for. So I'm kind of doing like larger chapters. The downside to that competition is it's Japanese only. You have to qualify. You have to be your work has to be in Japanese to qualify for the actual serialization. Understandably. So yeah, I'm working on that part. Working on that part.
Yeah,
Um,
doing sci-fi, that's daunting.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I would be.
technobabble is brutal in
Yeah, I've heard.
Japanese.
I've got magic, so I've got the same problem. I've
Yep.
got like lore and stuff, so I've got the exact same issue. I'm like, there's gonna be of katakana in this because I'm gonna have all these weird words.
Yeah, I mean that.
Um,
Yeah, the more you mention it, the more I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's
it would
rough.
be difficult, but I mean, it's fun. Like just to kind of see, I'm just gonna post it regardless, no matter how well it does, just so I can maybe get more of an audience. But what I like about this is it allows you to sort of like, if you want to make a webtoon, like they'll work with you. Like you can make a webtoon, it'll have like the slices in there automatically. And what it'll do is every slice is going to be its own page, just like it does in traditional format. So you can go in between whichever one you want, like select it, open it. Let me close this one. So like if I want to open page 2, I can double click on it. It might take a second. It's empty, but boom, I've got my page. And then what I
Okay, so now I've got a question.
mm-hmm.
I'm doing both.
We mean both. Oh, webtoons and vertical.
And I'll show you how I've got it kind of rigged so we can
Mm-hmm.
talk about it because let me get there. Hang on. Have to go all the way back out. I was in a different project.
No,
I was
I've
working
got
on a mission.
I've got a
So
bunch of my pages up too, so I feel you. I was
yeah.
working on some this morning.
So let me can you can see what I'm doing over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me go on ahead and just highlight the screen temporarily. So this is my master page here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got a normal manga page with an extender down to the bottom, which
Mm-hmm.
is set so that the final resolution on this is set for 800 by 1280, which is
Mm-hmm.
1 unit for Webtoons. But this little extension on the bottom is only going to be used when we do Webtoon pages.
Mm.
So, um,
Interesting.
so it's what I'll do is I'll do the normal page inside my normal safes, and then I
Mm-hmm.
will add an extra bit of art to each page so that they will link so that you can read them in Webtoons.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of extra work.
Yeah, it's because I want to do both. I want to be able to
Yeah,
print it and I want to
it's
be able
smart.
to put it on Webtoons, and they're two different formats.
Yeah, exactly. And having like a traditional format of webtoons that are like, this is a traditional format. And I'm like, well, I've thought about doing that, like taking mine apart to make a webtoons, but I was treated so badly on webtoons last time. I don't want to go back.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that I think with Webtoons, I can do 20 pages for a 16-page
Mm-hmm.
segment because I'd be able to break up pages and like this page will have the top 4 panels, and then I'll put a big open panel here with just one
Mhm.
character or whatever, and then text can be like spread out a little, and
Yeah.
I can do extra. I feel like I can do extra things.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And this is really smart having like literally one page that does all of that. And I would think that you would be able to do that if you go into like your page settings. You can control your margin and your actual paper size. And so if you set it up in such a way that you have like the like a large, like the edge, like the ginkgo, like a wider margin at the bottom
Hmm.
there after
Hmm.
your bleed there, then I would think that you'd be able to make that work. I mean, maybe you could add an extra margin. I don't know. That's really interesting. I've never thought about doing both in one page before. I'd be curious to see if anyone's been able to figure out how to make that work. But what you could do is if you create a comic page that has like a bunch of like empty, um, like your margins aren't there, like you can, because you had obviously your own margin system. If you can just copy that into blank pages that don't have margins using the story feature, you could still create a webtoon and a traditional comic format at the same time. You would just have to export it twice. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. Was
That would be
um,
fantastic. That would make your life so much easier than having to export every single page individually.
that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of why I'm like, hey, I got Kat here. I'm going to ask all of these questions
That's
because
what I would do. Is I would figure out how to have like a wider margin after this, for like your entire Ginkgo page. That's what I would do. Is I would figure
Mhm.
out like how to do that. I'm not honestly, I don't know offhand. I've never tried to do that, so I would
Right.
think it would be in the page settings. Let's see, story page settings. Let's see. Yeah, here your finish size. You probably just have like a larger finish size. Is probably what you would have to do, and then you could
Well,
just import this margin in. Now, when you're exporting, that would be a little bit harder, because so say I have this vision one is my story here. When you
oh,
go to export, let's see,
I'm gonna
file.
make you the big guy real quick.
Okay, yeah, I'll actually show you how this process works. So if I want to batch export, oh, I've got two screens here. Sorry, I always have to drag everything over. It'll
Oh,
ask you what pages you want to export, obviously, where you want to put them. And then what's really handy is if you work in spreads, it'll give you the option to split the spreads automatically. Um, I always obviously split the spreads unless I'm
right.
exporting for like special reasons. So let's just say, okay, yep, I'll put it. Oh, I have to pick a different folder location just for the minute. Just do it there. Okay. So I hit OK. I've got all my pages selected. Write text to file. That doesn't mean the text that's in your images. That's not what that means. So don't click it. By the way, I learned that the hard way. That was a mistake. Mistakes were made. I wish I could make this bigger. So you'll come to your export settings, and it'll be different depending on what you're exporting: TIFF, PNG, JPEG, that sort of thing. Your export range here is what it'll export. For you would probably have to do all pages. That way, it'll export the entire range of the page if you have your own custom margins.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing your Webtoon version, but then you can do to offset of crop mark. And what that'll do is that'll crop to the trim line. I had to figure out, or no, sorry, inside of crop mark, sorry. Your inside of crop mark will crop to your trim. The offset of crop mark will keep the outer crop lines that they have past the bleeds. That's where it'll crop to. So it'll,
That was the question I was going to have right there.
mhm. Yeah,
Was
you
that
want the inside of crop mark. That's the trim. I wish they would
okay?
just
Good.
say trim and bleed, and that would make everything easier. But they don't write
Well,
it that way.
and let's bring this as into sort of a practicality. I double clicked and I
Hmm.
didn't mean to. Let's make this a practical thing. So if I were, because one of the things we've got obviously is I want to keep my margins over here because these are when I go into tone my characters and things like that. I'll draw things, and then all I have to do is just right mouse click over here, and I can grab all of the different things. And each one of these represents a different character. Like this is Chang Li's,
Right.
her skin, her alternate colors, like her lips and her hair. And then this is Mayrel and Bennett and stuff like that. So I've got all of their color
Hmm.
tones, so I can easily make them all uniform. So,
Right.
and
So
of
what I
course,
would
I
do.
use the dot function over here, the tone function
Mhm.
from. That's
Oh,
makes my life just super easy.
I know. I love that. Like that feature was what made
That
me
feature.
switch over to Clip Studio. That feature
Mhm.
right there was the thing
Right
that made
there.
me switch until I discovered the story feature, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going back to Photoshop ever again. So my
But
suggestion would be to make a flattened version of this, or if you
hold on.
make a folder and you put
This is a
all of
flattened version right here. So this is
okay,
only
cool.
one JPEG.
Okay, cool. Then you would need to import that into each of your images, each of your pages, and you should be able to just line up the trim lines, and you should be good to go. If you can line up the trim lines in your margins, you should be good to go
That's what I was
when you
thinking.
export.
That's exactly what I was thinking. So let's real quickly,
In
uh,
theory, that should work.
right? So it's this one's 6600 by 1020. I'm going to write this down, otherwise I'll forget it.
Is that
So
before size?
I'm sorry.
Do you go by so when you make a new story comment? Let me see what it'll actually ask for. All
Right,
right, you
because
can
that's
set your custom. So you can totally set custom sizes for your pages and everything. So you shouldn't have to worry about like having to use presets or anything. So you
cool.
can totally make a new custom.
So should I make a comic?
I would suggest you could do either one. Webtoon might be easier for you. My only concern though is when you go to print, if you use a Webtoon, are you working at print size?
Yep. It's
Oh,
this is 4 times up. So 4 times the
oh,
standard
okay,
size of five
cool.
inches by whatever.
So when you go to export in a Webtoon, what it'll do is it'll ask you how big you want them, and it'll even downsize and everything for you automatically. So I would actually make a Webtoon version instead,
You think
and I
so?
would set, yeah, that's what I would do. Well, so here's the problem you're going to run into. If you make a Webtoon version, there are no margins in a Webtoon version. If you want to have margins for traditional version, you need to use the comic format. That's the problem you're going to run into is when you go to export and you need to crop something. The Webtoon doesn't have the crop. Only the
So
traditional page format story feature does.
what do we think? I mean, because that's the only thing is that like we've got a lot of extra stuff
Yeah.
outside of. So
I mean,
let's.
honestly,
I think probably comic might be better.
that's where I'm thinking comic would be better. And then you can just choose to not export to the crop mark when you're doing your Webtoon export. You can just export the whole page. That's would be probably what I would recommend.
That's what I think too. I think so too.
hmm That would be the easiest, probably the
Can we
easiest
set up two
solution.
different crop sets?
No.
So there's only one set of crops whenever we go to
hmm
the end.
Yeah, you'd actually have to go into your page format settings and then change the crop settings before you export. And then you'd have to remember to change it back later. So after
Right.
you make a page and you set certain margins, you can actually change them afterwards. So you can change your margin settings at any time. It's just if you change them to export something, then you need to remember to change them back for the other export format. So theoretically, you could do both. You would just have to make sure you know which margins are set at which time before you export, if that makes sense.
It does. I think that actually it won't matter because I'm going to have to go in and make a different version for Webtoons anyway because there's going to be different art. I mean, there'll be little pieces
Right.
of art that are in between,
Mhm.
and I'm going to space out things and stuff like that. So
Yeah. So when you're looking at this story feature here, it looks kind of overwhelming with all the different things that are in it. Your comic settings obviously is like your sizes, your resolution, all of that goodness, monochrome. If you work with grays, are you used to working in monochrome?
yep,
Okay, cool. So you already know about just turn the layer to gray. You
yeah.
already know about
I
that.
click the button
Um,
that makes life everything awesome.
The align crop mark merges your trims if you're in spreads. So I would not mess with that one. You don't want to do that. And then your check whether if you're not doing a fanzine, you don't have to worry about that. Your number of pages is pretty obvious. Your right binding and left binding is it right to left or left to right?
We're going to go
Okay,
standard for American. Good morning, Donald. We're going to go
so you
for standard
want
American left to right.
left, yeah, left to right. So you'd want left binding. Because
Or
if you're if you're looking at the front of the book, the left is what's bound.
right.
hmm
Um, Here's the problem: is saying for cover plus 12 body.
So you have cover page selected. If you don't want a cover page, you can turn that off.
Where's
Are you going to have cover pages?
not on this one? Oh, there's
Okay,
the
then you can turn
I,
that off.
I got it. I got it.
Yeah, so now when you do your number of pages, it's not going to ask for cover.
Right.
And then your story information is, all that fun stuff. You can add all of that goodness. And then if you have a start number, like, for example, with, comics book with interiors and exteriors, you can start it on whatever number you want if you care about your exterior and interior count.
Right.
I personally don't. And then your folio, you don't need to worry about this. You don't need to worry about that. So don't even worry about that.
Right. Well, I'm looking over here first on this one because this is in millimeters.
It is.
How do I switch it out of millimeters?
You can't. Oh, unit. Sorry. You should be able to switch it there. It's not letting you switch it?
Yeah, it won't let me switch it there.
Oh, shoot.
Because, of course, we've got to figure out what.
I don't think it's going to let you switch because it's not letting me switch. I forgot about that part.
That's right. We just have to do the math. Because we want it.
Hi, Donald.
Yeah, we want it to. Okay. Hey, Brent. We've got to get to 6600 by 10200, 600 DPI.
All the pixels.
Yeah, and we've got to
put that in inches first, and then inches to millimeters.
Yeah, because that's probably our best.
Yeah.
Okay, I got my phone. Got my phone.
Do some math time.
Math
Too
time.
early for this. Too early.
Okay, 6600 divided by 600 is 11 inches, which makes sense. I think this is 11 by 17.
Should be.
That theoretically, but I'll check it. 10200 divided by 600 is 17. Okay, so 11 by 17.
Okay, now convert that into millimeters.
Okay. Brent's like, what?
Math.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot that it does this.
I'm just going to let 2 millimeters. I'm just going to let this do this itself. 11. 279.4, of course.
We could always use a little extra space, so 0.6 millimeters might be handy.
Yeah, 431.8. So that's our final numbers on this. Ugh, that's a mess. Okay, so its width is 274 or 279.4.
It's math day for guys.
Yep. Yeah, I know. Well, I'm very bad at math, so
I love math.
It worries me greatly by doing it that way.
There you go. So your bleed is how much bleed you have.
Yeah, can I change my bleeds later?
Yeah. Yes.
Because what I'm wanting to do here, of course, is bring in.
It only gives you 2 options at the moment. It gives you 5 and 3. That's all it gives you. So.
Okay, so there you go. It doesn't really matter. Okay. Do we want to save this setup? Because that's where
template. So click the template button, and that will help you save it as. Oh no, sorry. That's for putting in pages. I don't know how to do this.
Well, that's
this part I don't know.
Here.
I don't know if you can save it as
there
a
we
custom.
go. Preset.
Huh? There you go.
Preset, settings. So we'll call this standard.
I just use the default B4 size, so I'm sorry I don't know this part.
All right. Standard guy format. Because I'm doing a weird format, right?
Yeah, this is definitely not normal.
Page settings, not cover settings, but a resolution. Paper color is not a thing. Template. No templates are set up. Basic expression color. Not really. I don't care. Okay. So we're going to set this up. We got 16 of them set for the left binding. Combined 2-page spreads. Is it going to start with 1 to the right? Or is it going to start with 1 on the left?
It'll since you have spreads, it'll have a 2-page spread as your first set. So your first page will be on the left.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I would start with a first page on the right. How do I do
So
that?
start page
Start
from
page
right.
from the right. There we go, right there. That's how I
Yeah.
want
So that should have a right page as your first page. And
it.
you can always edit. You can always edit that manually afterwards if it doesn't look like how you want. You can always manually edit that, and I can show you how.
Yeah, style 1.
That's what I like about the story feature is even if you don't make your settings right the first time, usually you can go in and edit it and change it. Like, oh wait, I meant this. So it makes it pretty easy.
Okay. Same save folder may not be found, or it may not be folder. What?
So you need to pick a folder to save it in.
Oh,
So see how that's what it has picked for
yeah,
you. So
that makes sense. Like, obviously, here's a bad place for this. Let's put it in the OneDrive where it should be. And your
and
gag.
you'll make a comic folder, and then within the comic folder, it'll have all of your individual pages, and then it'll have like your master file. So you're gonna have a second folder. So whatever folder you put it in, it'll say comic or whatever. Yeah. So your
Yeah,
file name, that'll be the folder name that it gives. So if you want that to be something else, you can put that there.
I got to remember that. It's not
Hi, so I'm Kat Jackson. I'm definitely not Pepper. Definitely not Pepper.
So yeah, Kat's a buddy of mine from Red Team Go days,
Yeah,
and
man.
yeah, I know, right?
It's longer ago than I wish to admit.
I hit OK. Let's see what happens. Hit the OK button.
Yeah, it might take a minute to generate things. There it goes. Just thinking about it. And now what's really cool is you'll have like a master file, and you'll be able, if you want to, you can open the master file and then work from there. Or if you want, you'll have all the individual page files in that folder. You just need to open the page you want to work on, and you can go from there. You don't have to open the master file to work on stuff. The
We've
benefit to
apparently
it.
stopped streaming, much to the dismay of Brent.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry. I
All
got
right.
Twitch because I got shadow banned. I made them mad somehow. They never told me why, so I'm like, I'm already monetized on YouTube. I'll stay there. Zoe.
You're okay. So now
Okay.
we've got to take this
Mm-hmm.
and put it in here. Why is it a different size?
You should be able to scale it. Try scaling it and see if it fits.
Oh yeah, but it shouldn't. That this means that
Yeah.
I did math wrong. Because look at that. That doesn't fit at all.
Oh, we did do math wrong.
We did wrong math.
Oh my. Well, the good news, you can change all of this stuff afterwards. So
Well, sure, but
I'm sorry, guy. I
it's all
tried.
right. That's why I was saying, hey, Brent, because like I suck at math apparently.
In Facebook jail. That's funny.
Yeah, they're both well. Brent's in Facebook jail because yesterday he was talking about stabbing with a spoon,
Oh.
and so they auto banned him. And it's funny because he didn't even really. It was we were doing a piece,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working on the piece, and the I use maquettes to
Mm-hmm.
preset set the scene,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't find a knife. The girl is supposed to be tossing a knife up and down in the air like she's
Mm-hmm.
an assassin, so
Right.
she's doing the throwing the knife thing. I couldn't find it, so I was like, well, maybe a spoon. I'll use something, just something to indicate where it is. And Brent had said something like, well, I guess you could stab people with a spoon, and then they banned him. I was like,
Oh my
really?
goodness. Oh, dang.
Even in context, that makes sense. I don't
It does.
understand. I mean, it's
It's
like,
not. Jeez, please, look, calm down. Calm your tits.
right? Totally. It was like, it's so frustrating because it was like,
Oh
I
man.
feel bad now because, of course, it's my fault, but still.
Oh. Well, okay.
Oh,
Well,
right.
we can
Let's,
figure this out. But do you want me to just show you some other cool things that it can do? Because I have to have a hard stop at 12 my time, which is 11 your time, because I have a
that's all
meeting
right.
for work.
I see what one of the things here is that it almost fits inside here,
Yeah.
which means that maybe I don't know. Yeah, go on ahead and show us some of the other stuff that you've got here. I'll put you back up here in main.
Yeah, I'll see if
And
I can
I'll move
figure
down to the
out
bottom.
what specifically we need to do with all of that at a later date. So that's weird.
Or while you're showing things, I will, if
Being
you're
naughty,
far enough with
naughty
the
Club
wooden spoon.
Studio. Wooden spoon. Okay, so I've got a couple different pages up so I can show you guys a couple of different things. One of the things I like the most about Clip Studio is it has like its assets, which are sort of like assets can be anything from 3D models to custom brushes to pre-made images to screen tones. Like this is the assets area. Well, maybe not this one. Don't need that. Ignore this top one here. That's my preview image here. So all of these are different assets. These are things that you can either create yourself, put in your assets, or you can download from other people using the asset store, which is sort of like a giant open source that creators can create things and upload, and then you can either buy them or download them for free from other creators, depending on like what they put. And the
Right.
reason why I like this so much is there's a lot of really cool tools you can download, like perspective grids and perspective rulers and auto actions. There's all kinds of really cool things. Let's see. One of the things that I have been learning about, Guy, because we mentioned it, was the perspective ruler.
Right.
I went ahead and took some time this week to figure out how this thing works, and it is so amazing. This whole panel here, minus like the really poorly drawn like circular parts, was drawn with a perspective ruler. And what's me actually, I'll minimize some of my lines, or I'll thin out some of my lines here, so I can just redraw them. And I'll actually show you. It's really really nifty. So I'll zoom out just a little bit. The lines are kind of hard to see because they're so thin. That's where all these purple lines are. I
Hmm.
have a 3 point perspective going. Let me actually select this here. So there's a very thin blue line up here. This is my horizon line. This line right there is my horizon line. It's right here. And then really, really far out, I have a vanishing point
Vanishing
all the way
points.
up there. And then I have a vanishing point all the way over here, really hard to see. And then I've got one all the way down there. And those are my 3 point perspectives. And
One of
what's
the
cool.
things that I really love, if there's
Mhm.
any one thing that I adore about Clip Studio, is the making each panel its own universe.
Yes.
That's
The
so
folder
cool.
system. Yeah, so
Because
I'll show.
inside a panel, I can draw off
Yeah.
the panel, I can draw all over the place, like you're doing there. You can put vanishing points everywhere.
Yeah,
All
I'll
of that
actually
stuff
show
is
you guys what he
happening.
means. So here's a really quick, like I just dragged a quick template in here. And what's really nifty is each of these boxes, like he was saying, is their own universe. So let's have the first one. If you look right here in my layering panel, you can see that it has sort of like its own layer, and then it's a folder actually, and then it has a mask. I was like, what is the word for this? A mask. So if I
Hmm.
create a new layer and I place it within that panel folder, and I go to draw something, it keeps it within that space, even if I go outside the margins. It automatically masks every single layer that I have inside of that.
Right.
It's really, and then what's really nifty is say you need to draw something that has to go on top. So you've got a character, or maybe you've got some like cool sound effect or whatever that you're doing, and let's say
Want
we've
to
got a
put it on
character
top.
here instead. Yeah, we've got a character right here, whatever they're doing this thing, and we don't want this part to be cut off, but we want like say this part to be cut off. I can select that, go outside of it, like alter it, and then if I wanted to, I could create another mask and I can cut it out too. You can do all kinds of fun stuff with this.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, being able to use like your cropping and your selection, so it makes it really really easy to like, even if you have to make something that goes outside of it and you want to crop like a part of it, it just makes it for really easy selecting rather than having to like use your magic wand tool and you've got that weird extra margin and like that weird little like pixelated little teeny tiny line that just drives you freaking crazy. So yeah, this is a really cool tool just to make everything in your life easier. And then what's really neat is this perspective ruler. What's my page here? Um, that's what I have here. Is all of these lines are inside of this. If I deleted this mask here, delete. Oh, maybe it won't let me because it's a. Yeah, it's because it's attached to a panel. It won't let me delete it. But on
Right.
any normal mask or whatever, you can delete them wherever the same. So now you can change
Here's
this.
the thing that really is useful for like when I use, because um I'll use maquettes,
Mhm.
and let's say I want to, the original scene is small, let's say, like
Mhm.
so. I can say, oh, I really kind of want to make, oh, I should probably make this like a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, I really want to make it so that we're closer on her face. I can
Mhm.
bring that inside the mask
And you can get. It's like you get a better
and
preview
get
of what it looks like.
really, really close inside
Mhm.
here. And I can still see what part of the background is still going to show up because I use the 3D
Mhm.
backgrounds for all of my
That's awesome.
stuff. And this
Yeah.
allows me to see how much of the background's still going to come through.
Mhm.
And I can still do all of the normal things that we were doing before. Um, but I mean, if I were to go to this panel, I can still bring in,
Mhm.
that's the best part. This is the part that I love about it.
Yeah, it kind of allows you to like
I
really
can,
quickly panel and really quickly sketch things out and get roughs in without having to worry about all the cleaning of your panels. It just does it automatically because it has that masking system.
yeah, an image in the
Mhm.
fire would be cool. What? I don't understand what that means, but okay.
I think you meant the fire that I had up
Oh,
here,
oh,
maybe.
I see. I
Um,
see. Let me flip that so that you can bring that
Here,
up
you
again
guys
for
can see.
people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because but yeah, your artwork is stunning, obviously.
Oh, thank you.
It's one of the reasons why we hang. Well, it's not why we hang out. We hang out because we like each other, but
Yeah.
but also because you're a good artist.
Yeah, and yeah, I gave guy like like all these
A
pages, like
whole
the
bunch of
full
pages that I'm
resolution.
like
Yeah.
I get to study and stuff
Mhm.
because your
Yeah.
line work is spectacular.
So I want to show you this perspective ruler because this might blow your mind a bit. Now it can be a little hard to set up if you already have a pre-existing perspective like you do. That I can see with your previews and your the way you do your layouts. You've already got a pre-existing perspective.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
But I
so
love perspective ruler. Well, and here's the deal. I use the maquettes because it cuts about 3 hours per page
mhm.
out of speed. However, on the flip side, I sacrifice, um, I want to say nimbleness. No, uh, maquettes aren't as they're more rigid, so there's
Oh
no
yeah.
flexibility. It's
And
great
that's
if I'm just trying to get the story out the door,
mhm.
but the truth is, ultimately, my goal is to not have the maquette in there anymore and
Mhm.
just draw
So
them straight.
So the perspective ruler will not help you with that necessarily.
No.
It won't help you put a figure in perspective, but it can help you with like the backgrounds and like rough layouts,
Yeah.
or figuring out like where the perspective like is for different things.
Hmm,
So
hmm.
I already have my ruler set up. This little like triangle icon with a layer. That's my actual perspective ruler. If I want to, I can move this ruler to any layer and it'll apply. So I've got a
So
new
that
layer
same
here.
perspective ruler,
Huh?
it keeps the settings on the ruler.
Yeah. So if I want to, so right now it's applied to this layer, but I
Mhm.
want to draw on top of it, just to kind of, like redraw it to kind of actually show you how it works. So I've got my new layer, this layer 326, and
Great.
I'll move this up. So now it's transferred the ruler to this layer. So yeah, so this is the old one down here, the perspective ruler number one, which was the original layer that I made. And so now I've got on this new layer. If I grab my brush here and I start drawing, what it'll do is it'll actually, do I have it turned on? Nope, I don't have it turned off, that's why. So when you have your perspective ruler, there's a icons up here, snap to rulers. You have to make sure that those are also on. I didn't have that on, that's why I didn't take.
Right.
So if
I'm
I
noticing
wanted,
that I have two, or I have all three of them on.
so it's,
Snap to ruler, snap special ruler, and
mhm.
snap to grid.
Yeah.
where
So
you
for
only had the special ruler on.
yeah, the special ruler because it's a perspective ruler. And what it's like, I am not holding shift doing any of these lines. It does it automatically. So now
That
it's
is attractive.
yeah, and
The
this is
shift is
not
one of the things that,
perfect,
well, no, but it still
but
looks solid.
yeah, it's absolutely great for sketch. I love to use it now for sketching, especially buildings, because it can get that perfect perspective in. And then when you're ready, you can go in, and then get like a perfect, like you already have like the rough sketch for perspective, and then you can go in and draw it organically so that it looks really nice. But if you need that straight line still, you can just quickly turn it on, get that straight line in, boom, turn it off, and then you're back to drawing organically. That's the downside is with this ruler system on, you can still draw like it tries to draw in perspective no matter what.
Right.
So if you want, so like if I wanted to draw this arc here, I'd have to turn it off, do my arc, which I'm just throwing it in really quick,
Yeah.
then turn it back on. Then I could go back to drawing down here.
Is there a hotkey for that?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
You can make one though. You can always make one in Clip Studio. I'm not sure if there's like a command for that. Like if there's an option to add a command to that tool specifically. I would think so. Clip
Yeah, well,
Studio
I've got
preferences are so customizable.
my XP Pen monitor has 16 keys
Oh,
on the
nice.
edge of the monitor.
Hmm.
So I usually keep a lot of the most important keys on my left side of the monitor because that's, I put
Right.
my left hand on the left side of the monitor and draw with my right hand.
Right. Yeah,
But
that's
I
what
can
I do.
see, right hand keys over here on this right side. Like I put save
Hmm.
on the right side because, I'll pause for a minute. And that's a great time to save.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So that's what this tool does. Is it will like depending on what like drawing direction you're moving, like if I'm moving up and down, it's gonna catch the third point perspective. If I'm drawing to the right or left, it could, catch either one. It's just gonna depend on like what you're drawing. Here is this a vanishing point that goes up here. This is technically my second point perspective, and then the
Hmm.
other one is going this way. So it's
So
gonna
does
catch
does it
it.
give you does it
What?
give you the the ability to have expression
What do you mean?
on the
Like
lines? Are you getting expression? I can't see a high
yeah,
enough resolution because I've got all my controls
yeah. Let
around
me
there,
zoom
so I'm not
in.
seeing the same picture as you are.
Yeah, let
So
me zoom in so I can. Yeah, you can definitely have the thick to thin line still. I just
okay.
have my brush really thin. Let me
No,
make
it's all right.
sure.
It's all right. I was just wondering whether you had expression.
Yeah, so you can definitely do that kind of thing still. The only point you have to be careful of is if you're lifting your pen to get like a dashed line, it might slightly shift it. Like you can
Yeah.
see here that it actually. Oops. You can
It's all
see right here.
confused. Yep.
Yeah, it's slightly shifted it a little bit. So if you're gonna draw and break up the line, it's almost easier to draw it and then like go over and erase a little bit of it versus lifting it. Unless you're like super, super picky about like you have to have it perfectly straight. If you're not and you're drawing organically, no one's gonna notice. Like we're artists, we're usually pretty good at making straight lines and I mean to me it would look more organic to do it, to slightly lift it, but I also was just drawing really loosely. So, but that's
Right.
basically what this does. That's what this is for. It's super handy to like just get like, and that's what this is. This is my rough sketch, and then now I can go in and I can draw everything and make it look nice and do proper curves so that they don't look
Right.
so gangly looking. Um, the other thing that I really enjoy is screen tone tools and hatching tools. Is like that's what I did here for this fire here is this is actually like a screen tone that I put in, and then I used a tool to help give me that sort of like hatching looking effect. The lines in here is actually a image.
Nice.
So I didn't have to draw all of that. It's actually the same image that make the lines on these rocks that are going horizontal. It's the same thing.
Okay, that's another thing that I just recently set up,
Hmm.
which was a brush to do zipatone.
Hmm.
And it's because I was going back through old artwork and I
Hmm.
need to patch artwork. So I already
Mm.
have it toned. It's already toned up. But you
Mhm.
know how when you scan stuff in, sometimes one or two of the dots doesn't quite make it. or you got a
Yeah.
piece of white fluff on top of there during the scan, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So I'm going in and patching, which usually I would use the stamp brush, but the there are a couple of them where it was just a massive amount of missing tone, and
Mm-hmm.
so I was making a brush out of it for the tone and stuff
Mm.
like that. And I'm noticing when I'm looking at what you've got there, because I actually have an entire directory of Zipatone.
Mhm. Oh yeah, same here. I've got. Let
Um,
me find mine. Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of them right here that I've
right,
kind of downloaded and added. And the ones I use the most, obviously, are at the top.
right. I've
Um,
got all
mhm.
these deleter tones that I snagged when I was in Japan.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so you've got like real legit ones. I've just got downloaded ones. The reason why I like to use these is they're vectorized, and
Mhm.
so I can change them a lot easier, and like they're not gonna get all like weird, squiggly looking. Do you use vector layers in Clip Studio, by the way?
I don't. I use
You
all
should.
raster layers all the
You, sh-
time.
you should use vector layers.
I
Make your
know,
life easier.
and it's like,
That
and I'm
pattern.
totally, that
That,
is totally, and I'm an old crotchety Gen Xer moment. I mean, it really is. I
hey, at
have,
least you're not drawing all of your cock emoji by hand. At least you're not drawing all of it by hand.
that's true.
So
That's true. I mean, I've got like
I'm sure
time
you
saving,
could.
but like, yeah, like a lot of these are just normal deleters that I scanned in at 600
Yeah.
DPI, so they match the DPI of my of my comics generally, because I've always worked over um over resolution.
So
So
I'll show you something. Let me bring this one. This is my favorite one. It's just like a bunch of lines, and I can scale it, I can rotate it, I can do whatever I want to it. You know, I can add, and then to like scrape it, you can either I put a mask on. I'm gonna grab my special tools here. I've got my deco tool, which is where all my custom brushes are. I've got a bunch of hatching tools that I can use for different types of scraping. Oh, I'll put on scraping, so I can actually scrape some of this off. Um, there's
oh,
all different kinds of.
Donald has made a real. I want to real quickly just explain the difference between rasterized and vector.
Mhm,
Rasterized is where you have lines that are rendered already in the texture. So, for example, if you have a line and it's at X resolution, it will be a line that as you get closer and closer, you'll start seeing the different boxes and the pixels. That's a rasterized line. With vector, it's a set between 2 points or a number of points, and the closer you get to it, it's still rendering it correctly.
mhm.
So
I'll
it's
actually show you how it works.
re-rendering the vector line so that you can be infinitely close to your artwork and it still comes in looking just fine. Can you give us an example over there, Kat?
Yeah, so I just drew a really quick smiley face with a
Smiley
vector
face.
layer. So I'll show you again, guys. So if you want to make a vector layering clip, there's two different new layer icons at the top. There's one that says new raster layer, new vector layer. You can click new vector layer, and it'll create a new layer, and it'll have that smart object icon, the little cube.
Hmm.
You just grab your tool, and then every line you make is going to be a new raster or new vector line. So every
Hmm.
stroke is a new line. So you have to remember that part. And then I can come in and I can customize this. And then, so it looks like a normal sketch now. But if you do your select object tool and you click on this, it's all individual. Every single line is individually editable. And you have all your different points on it. And then what's really nifty is if I go to resize this, you know, usually as artists, we resize our things. It gets blurry the bigger you make it. So let me delete this really quick and I'll make it really tiny to emphasize my point. So if we try to size that up, it's probably going to look really gross. Not so. Not so with vectors. Resize it up. Now it might get a little weird on the edges, just a teeny
Yeah,
bit.
But let me I'll make the counter argument here, and I will show
Look
you
how clean
exactly.
this is. I resized it like 400 or 500 times, and look how clean the edges of this are. If we
Right.
notice
I
there's a
will
little
do the opposite. I will add a raster layer here in
bit.
this one, and I'll show the other side of it, which
Mhm.
is I will make the smiley face in raster, and then we'll enlarge that. And now you can see what has occurred.
And here's the other difference is if Guy clicks on the long or the like say the eyeball, if he clicks on that with the object tool, he doesn't get these individual points that are made by that line. And if I
Right.
wanted to, I could take this apart and I could totally move it around and change the shape of the stroke by using this vector. So that's the difference between like the vector tool or the vector layer and a raster layer in Clip Studio. A lot of manga artists will use vector layers creating their line art. So that way, if they need to just adjust it slightly, they don't have to redraw it. They literally just grab the point and move it slightly. And what's really cool is if I go to erase, it'll still erase like it normally would.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a big thing that
Mhm.
I by the way, I absolutely no, don't apply the transformation. I absolutely hate the fact that I am an old crotchety old man whenever it comes to this stuff, because this actually is very useful. One of the things that I love, and I'll put this in here too. I'll put a new vector layer in on this
Oh,
one.
you might want to make yourself big
Oh, I
so
need to
you can
make
see what you're
myself big.
doing.
There we go. Inbigonate.
Big and Nate.
I have inbigonated. Another thing that's really fascinating that we can do is with a vector layer. If we do that, there is a function where we have the a vector eraser,
Yes.
which can take pieces of it away by just doing that.
Yep. Oh, I
So,
love that tool so
and
much.
I'll get closer here, and you can see that again. So we I've made my line, and it's a vector line, and so you can see it's got all the control points. I'll make it even more imbiginated. Um, it's got all the control points here, and I can take now this eraser and go to the vector eraser, and all I have to do is just cross it like that, and it kills everything past this line.
Which is so
I can do the
cool.
same thing there, and do the same thing like that, and now we have an egg. Yay!
It's
An
like it's so perfect for cleaning up your line art. It like you can go in like, oh, I went over just a little too much, and you go to erase it, and you're like, oh no, I erased too much.
oh
Not
no, I did too much over here. Oh no. And I can just take this and just go rup like that and rup like
Mhm.
that and
Yep.
rup like that, and all of it's gone
Isn't it beautiful?
it actually kind of turned this into like a interesting piece of art that I did really really fast,
Yeah.
and all I did was just do it really fast. And so it's no longer an egg with hairs. It's not a hairy egg anymore. Anyway,
That's
um,
concerning.
and
I love
it's one of
context.
those things that is kind of aggravating to me
Mhm.
as a because I keep thinking I need to do more vector work, but then I get all like messed up with the vector things, and I get
Yeah.
all intimidated by the vectors, and I really should make it a point to not do that anymore.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm just so used to doing everything by hand that I'm honestly because I'm gonna make a confession. Almost none of my layers are vector layers in terms of my liner. Almost none of them because
You're a
I'm the
crotchety
same
old
way.
man too. That's
I
why.
am. I'm just well, I'm used to paper, and so I'm not used to having that option. So like I don't even think about it, and I have to
Right.
like remind myself. Like I have like a little post-it note, use vector layers, just because if I need to make changes, it'll be so much easier. And I'm like, well, I work in 600 dpi. I can make any changes I need, and then I
Yeah,
need
that's
to like
what I do too.
upscale this thing, and I'm like, screw it, frick, I messed up.
Well, and part of it is daunting to me when
Mhm.
you get to the point where, like, an example here, it's really hard to see. Hang on,
Mhm.
work like this.
No, you're good. I'm
When you
just
get to
typing in my
the
next lesson.
when we get to the point where over here, this just becomes a massive mess of a zillion different layers all of a sudden, and I get
Man,
so
you're
that
telling
is
me
that's also intimidating to me. which is
this
silly because it doesn't make
this
any sense.
page this page has 326 layers.
Right, exactly. I mean, like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever
Yeah.
because I have had 400 layers in one picture before. In fact, yesterday when I was working on an illustration, when I was working in the illustration for Airship 27, we already had 30 layers, and it was a single illustration. And I was flattening layers left and right.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll do
Um,
that. Like I'll like merge things as I go, and so but it always like it's still like the layer count just keeps going up because it looks for the lowest number, and so like it keeps adding more and more and more, and it's like I promise I've actually merged them, and that's one of my friends give me crap about my layer count all the time.
right. Well, and I mean, yeah, I can kind of see that. I mean, it's like our layer counts get, and we do the
I
thing that
know.
we should never ever do, but we do it every time, which is layer one, layer two, layer three, layer four,
Oh
layer.
yeah, I'm terrible about that. But see, for me, I don't really mind that much because I can just like control click and it'll tell me if there's anything even on it. Like this layer doesn't even have anything on it. And so like I can just delete it. I have so many layers in here that have nothing on them.
Yeah,
If I ever need well, and that's why I also like the select tool, or the object tool, is you can have it select object or select layer, and anywhere I click, what it'll click the layer, so that I can find anything I need at any time. I just have to be able to. The only problem is if you have like like an effects layer, especially in color, like you'll have to keep turning off layers until you find the right one if it's hidden below a bunch of them. That's the only downside to it. Is I can get a little frustrating. And
right.
yeah, I had that problem with the color version of this panel here on the right that I made. I had a color version of this, and I have so many effect layers on top, and I had to find this like one tiny little dot that was misplaced, and I was like, frick. Actually, save a layer. So what's nice about this is that Clip Studio, just like Photoshop, has an autosave feature. And honestly, that feature is the only thing I have a complaint about because when it autosaves, it forces you to stop drawing. And if you're in the middle of hatching or cross hatching something, it will totally throw off your groove and you have to start over.
Yeah,
That's my only, or if you're doing line art, just something that you don't want to be interrupted in, and it goes, "Hey, it's been 5 minutes. It's time to save." And I'm like, "Damn you!" But I
yeah. I
have my
do.
set
I
every
have
5 minutes.
run into that problem a couple of times and said, you know what, I've disabled the autosave, and then I just tap the save button whenever I raise my pen for a while. For
Mhm.
that very reason, because the autosave is a little and it's intrusive.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's really like my biggest like grump about Clip Studio is that particular like Photoshop won't interrupt you. It just automatically does it in the background. Clip
Mhm.
Studio interrupts you. That's really my biggest complaint about it. Another thing that I really like about Clip is the they call it the streak or speed line, which I think is kind of funny. But you can do different scattered line. You can do rain, the focus tool, which I always thought was named really strangely. Oh, because it crashed, it didn't save the ones I imported. Damn it, I have to re-import them. Um,
I have a bunch of things that did the same thing. I had a
yeah.
dropout crash, and it was like, really,
Mhm. Yeah,
really.
so
That was
these are these sort of like scattered lines that you have in here, and what's really neat is they're also vectors by default. Oh, I have my select. I don't want this one.
I'm over here
Select
looking for
objects. There we
tape.
go.
We've been doing all this talking, and I have been thinking about all the things I've been meaning to do with setting up Clip and everything like that. Since we're talking about it, and one of them is all of my little icons over here on the right side of my XP pen.
Mhm.
All the hot buttons, hotkey buttons. I've been meaning to cover them with a piece of blue tape because it's I used a gold pin on the black monitor, and
Oh,
that's great, but I can't read it very well, and it's
yeah.
wearing off, and so I can't remember what all my hotkeys are, and so I just stopped using the hotkeys, and I'm like, well, that's a ridiculous decision to make.
Mhm.
So I was going to put a piece of tape on there and then tape it down. and then write the hotkeys on the tape. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're wondering what I'm doing wandering around my office,
No, you good.
yeah, I'm actually trying to fix this problem that really kind of has been.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite tools. There is the focus lines. So I
Okay,
don't
tell
have
me
to
a little
make.
bit about. Yeah, that one there.
Yeah.
That's the. So you can just fire off the focus lines themselves. Where is
Yeah.
that?
So if you look down here at the bottom, you might see a line that says
Oh, is it
speed
under
lines.
effect line?
So there's fill, gradient, and then figure. So it's called the figure tool. If you click on that, you'll have direct draw, speed lines, and focus lines. You can select the different types that you want. There's a wide variety of different ones. The dark focus is going to be very black heavy. Scattered focus.
Wait. I've lost you. I'm sorry.
Oh,
So
okay,
we're
okay. Oh, so on the
let's back
left,
up. Uh-huh.
on the
On the
left, you have
left?
fill, gradient, and
Oh, I
then figure. So click on figure. Let me
okay.
bring up your screen so I can see you better.
Yeah, you're right.
So let's see, figure. All right, so you see your subtool there. If you go to
Oh,
scatter,
I see it. Oh, I'm off.
there you go.
Right here.
Yeah, so those are so if you go one more over, those are your straight lines, your speed lines, and then here's your scattered ones. You just need to make a new layer. And if you and it'll automatically vectorize it, so you don't have to necessarily make a vector layer for it. It'll automatically vectorize it when it makes it.
Okay.
So then when you can select the one that you
Oh.
want, and it makes yeah you can click wherever you want, and it'll like make yeah. And so different ones are made different ways. Your dark focus one, for example, has you have to make the individual points, but you can customize it. And then just like the vector layers, you can do your select it might take a second.
I'm just fascinated by the I'm
Yeah.
sitting here doing the kablam.
No,
Look,
watch
it's an
this.
egg.
It's a super egg. What's really cool is
Egg.
after you make them, you can edit them. If you grab your object layer tool, your object operation tool, you can actually edit them after they're made.
Right.
So you can even move. It might take a second for it to catch up, but
It
because they're
does. It takes a
vector.
second, but that's all right.
And
Behold
then
the
and
egg.
then if you look at your tool property when you select it, you can actually edit them further. So depending on which one you've made.
So I can do toning if I need
As
to
long as
tone
you
it.
have to select it first. So if you select it first, then you can edit it after you've made it.
Oh yeah, because
Your
we've got to
operation
go into
tool.
this tool and
Yeah.
select it by control. Oh wow. Oh.
Mhm.
Oh. Oh, look
Yeah.
at that. Look at this trouble I can cause.
You can like yeah, everything in this figure tool, be it rain or speed lines, like everything is completely customizable even after you make it, which is what I really love about this tool. Is if you can't see something that's exactly what you want, you can make it and then edit it to be exactly what you want. And then you can download other like for example like the different flashes you can
Hmm.
download ones that other people have made and you can import that in. So if you find one that you see in the assets where you're like, oh, I really like that one, most of the time you can download it as a tool. Sometimes they'll have you download it as like a straight up image and you'll have to like crop or multiply it or whatever. But for the
Right.
most part, a lot of people will make them as vector tools. They'll make new beta flashes and urchin flashes and all that fun stuff.
Right. Like the one you've got looks more like
Mhm.
a magical girl power up
Yeah, and I
flash.
can completely move all of these lines and everything. I can completely customize it. So it's just really fun and handy. And then I can go in here where I have like gap of line, grouping. I can also, hang on, I was thinking about it. I can go in here and I can change all of these things once it catches up.
Yeah,
Sorry,
once it figures out what we're doing. Uh-oh.
that's okay. I just say wait and like usually it'll catch up.
Yeah, it's Windows. If you click too many times while it's
Thinking,
not
yeah.
doing it, it says, "Uh-oh, it's crashed."
Well, that and I've got 5 pages open.
Yeah.
It doesn't like that at all. There we go. So now it's catching up here. So I can change things like gap of line and disarray, and it'll actually edit this afterwards. It's
Yeah,
okay, Clef.
after
Take your
after a
time.
while, after a fashion.
Yeah, it's all right. I've got 50 million pages open, so
Yeah. Oh
there
yeah.
it goes. Yes, now it's there's disarray is sort of like the like consist like the amount of distance in between the different dark streaks, and so now there's less distance between them, and you would kind of have to come in here and play with these settings. The gap from reference point is how far the reference point is this red part here in the center. So if you want the gap to be smaller, you could lessen it, and if you want the gap to be wider, you can increase it. So like how much of a point does it have?
Hmm.
Going down into this. There's all kinds of settings you can adjust. I've been able to play with these enough that I can like come in and speed lines for a normal mangaka could take them hours. For me, it takes me through like like maybe like 3 to 5 minutes just to get it in and get the right settings. And for
Hmm.
me, because I work like a regular day job and I only have my nighttime hours, well now early morning hours because I'm up at 3 or 4, so that I have time to make my manga and then I go to work at 9 normally. So I have my I can make efficient use out of the what like 3 to 5 like usually 3 to 6 hours I have every day to work on it, and that's all I get. Because the
Right.
weekend is spent doing adult stuff,
Makes sense. I mean,
adulting.
it's the way that it goes. Yeah. I mean, I follow.
Mhm.
I follow. I'm going to be doing the
Yeah,
same thing here soon. I'll be in
exactly.
class all the time.
So what's
Um,
really nifty also about this storyboard story feature is it gives you if you make your pages small enough, it'll act and you keep it up kind of here on the side. It'll give you a preview of what your page looks like small, so you can check your thumbnails.
which is actually really good because if I look
Hmm.
at, let's say, and routinely love to do this stuff, like take, I'll imbigonate again. Um, you can see me down in the corner. You take like a manga, for example. This is Macross, one of my absolute favorites, and you
Hmm.
just look at just the layout of the page. They're satisfying, even if you can't really see what's going
Yeah.
on. You get a good feel of the flow of the page and how it's operating. And so having it like you're showing it there, where it's in the upper corner up there,
Hmm.
you can
Hmm.
kind of get a feel of, oh, how is the flow of this? Does it, you know,
Hmm.
I like to do symmetry in my stories. Like I like to do um, more panels when I'm trying to get more action, and fewer panels when things slow down.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah,
like to kind of have
Komori.
feel of that. And then we were talking about when you were last kind of popping in, we were talking about story flow
Yeah, Komori.
and how it's got an act one, an act two, and an act
Oh,
three
Keisha and
story.
Kids. Hmm.
Let me see if I can bring that up to illustrate what we were talking about. I don't think I've got.
Yeah, so the theory is that less, and it works in comics. This particular theory works in comics too. Like the smaller the panels, the quicker the actions.
Mhm,
The more smaller panels that you have, in a page, that's a lot of quick actions moving together. Those are actually those are called dense pages, and then rough pages are where you have less panels on a page. However, it's you in Keishoten gets in Komori usually it kind of depends on what style you're working in terms of like what style of writing you're working in. Some mangaka
mhm,
tend to have more rough pages, meaning larger panels with fewer on them in the beginning. And then as the action builds up, Kishoten Kids, you start getting exciting. They have a climax in every single chapter. They have the Kishoten Kids flow in every single chapter. So
mhm,
rougher pages in the beginning, you can start building up, and you tend to have more denser pages towards the middle, obviously slowing down and having rough pages when you need to slow the action down or when you need to have like an impact panel that it needs to be bigger and you need to slow the action down so that you're like, hey, this moment's really important, pay attention to it. And then what I've also learned is the different types of panels. In most pages, you have a panel called misegoma, which is sort of like the focus panel. So every spread or every page, depending on how you're working, should have a focus panel. That is the most important. And it's usually the largest panel of that page.
Right.
Where it's like, yeah, and then you have the smaller ones kind of around it to like fill in the actions.
For me, I brought this up before. This is from a mangaka that was in Hawaii but has now moved back to Japan. And he was doing a Facebook page called Aloha Manga School.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something he had posted on there. And I love the look of this, and the way it works shows sort of how you're supposed to sort of set it up. Now, not all of them fit. For example, I have
Is
made
this panel count?
I'm sorry?
Is this panel count on each page?
No, it isn't. But I don't think it is. But I just realized that that's probably not a bad idea.
I keep
Right?
track of that. I keep track of
Because
that.
for me, this would be a panel count, right? I get more panels in. Let's get a red pin here. I get more panels up into this area, and more panels here, and more panels here, and fewer panels down here. Right? Because, and this would be where because this is supposed to be the flow, right? So things are happy, then they're normal, then they're happy, then they're really bad. This is where it's gone crappy for your people or whatever. And then it gets happy again and then moves out of the story. And that was what he was saying. But the more I look at this, the more I think a panel count wouldn't be bad for this. It would match a panel count.
This is what I actually do. I keep track of that. So this is my schedule here, and what I do is
I'm gonna flop you, so you're in charge. Okay.
I have this is my schedule here, my absolutely chaotic schedule. I keep track of when everything's due. And what I do is I have all my pages here and I write the number of how many panels I have on that particular page. So these are the pages, page 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And then I write down how many panels I have on that page so I can keep track if I'm having too many pages with the same panel counts. And right here where it goes 3, 4, like it drops down, this is the impact point here. And then same thing right here. I have like a bunch of like 4, 5, 6, 3, 6, 5, 4, and then it kind of bounces again. Right. So like I've made sure to have like a low point page. Now usually I don't go over 6. I have one panel here that has a page that has 8. I usually stick between 4 to 6. And then that way if I go really low, I wanted people to go, oh, this doesn't have as many panels. Or if I go all the way up to 7 or 8, it'll make an impact. So like I usually stay 4 to 6. And then if I need to go above or below that, I make sure like there's a reason I'm going above or below that. But also what I've learned, oh, by the way, this is my posting. That's what all the dates are. These are like my posting schedules.
Yeah.
And then this is my drawing schedules. So far I'm on track. Getting a little close there to get this one done. Anyway, so let me close that. So usually what I'll do is
I've been trying to kind of get things into this format for a while. So what do you think if you got it's normal world, we're average, nothing major has happened yet in the story. What do you think your panel count would be for that?
You said nothing's happening?
Yeah, nothing major. So this is 2 characters. We've got, Bob and Tim, and they're talking about going to the manga store where the action will occur. The story will happen in the manga store, but they're outside, they're chatting with each other and stuff like that and just having a normal conversation.
I think that'd be a normal panel count, maybe like, 4 to 6 probably. It would be pretty average. It's just general story flow. There's nothing major happening. So maybe like, I'd say about 4 to 6. And then it's
four-ish.
Like, about 4 or 5 panels on
the
a
normal
page.
should be about 4. I'm actually writing this on this thing. That's why I'm asking here. So minimum would be, of course, 1 panel. Right?
Yeah, minimum would be 1. It would kind of depend on if a character says something important. Like if they say something important that might be foreshadowing, then you might want to make that panel larger and emphasize it. And then maybe have like 1 or 2 mob panels, which are like reaction panels, basically.
Yep.
A mob panel doesn't have any dialogue. Now something like like ah or like an exclamation mark doesn't count as like technically dialogue for mob panels, but
Hmm.
like having those mob panels when something important happens is really important. And a lot of times those mob panels like they tend to be bigger, but they don't have to be. I mean, in Yu Hakusho Togashi's work, he does a lot of mob panels, and it's really cool to see how he varies them. Some of them are really big and some of them are small. Same thing with Fizzle. He tends to make his bigger because
Hmm.
it's like
Hmm.
it's a
Hmm.
reaction. It's important. Um,
Right. The
oh,
reaction. You were talking about focus panels, and I think that's an important one too, like a focus
mhm.
panel in there. But I'm this is the one I actually made for Bellatrix, so that
Mm.
I can, it's telling me I probably ought to try to follow this, but then it's not with a splash. So
I
there's a
think no, I
splash.
think this works
Uh,
because you've got your introduction. It's important, so you're gonna have a few more panels. Get that action. Get the hook set, and then
mhm.
it relaxes. It has a slower panel count. It builds up, and then
Yep.
you have your action. Your panel counts drop severely for something important max moment, and then it can kind of come up and go back to normal. So like that
Yep. Well, I mean, like,
might.
for example, whenever I bring up momentary ghosts, I have I'm sort of starting with sort of the, come on, what's his name? The hero's journey, where you have the start of the story is in the normal world.
Mhm.
So I've got a 5-page lead where there's nothing happening really, because I want to
Mhm.
show that, they're getting coffee, they're going to the bridge, they get to the bridge, and during the time they're heading to the bridge, they're talking to this guy and talking to that guy, and
Mhm.
yada yada yada. So
It's
kind of
yeah.
getting sort of a setup of normal world. So I've
Mhm.
pushed this first bump back specifically,
Mhm.
but I know that
Mhm.
this is about where I wanted to be on this arc. So I was
Mhm.
like, okay, but the second part of this can follow the normal arc like it was.
Yeah, definitely vary up the panel. Like the panel counts don't necessarily have to vary page to page. It's not necessarily the important part because you can have the same number of panels page to page, but have different layouts to make it flow differently. And
Yeah.
the way it was explained to me, and I know you're a music guy too,
Oh, I lost you for a second there.
is
What?
the rhythm, the flow of the panels. It's not necessarily as important to think about how many panels are on the page. It's more like what are the size of the panels on the page and how are they set up so that it creates like a rhythm of flow, like your C curve, your J curve, your S curve, Z curve, whatever. um, that part is more like what's really important to think about is how does the actual flow work. That's why I work in spreads. I will not do a page by itself. I always work in spreads just so that I can make sure, at least when I'm planning, when I'm doing like my
Yep.
storyboard, my name phase, so that I can make sure that like the flow works really well, and I'll actually draw in that line, like as I like after like I'll do my sketch and I'll draw what the line of like flow line is, and I'm like, oh, I like that, or oh, that's too many curves, or there's a weird kink there that I don't like let's not do that, and then I'll resketch it. And it's like that's kind of the hard part is to make sure everything flows well. That's why I brought up this page as an example because this is a page that I really struggled with. Come on, clip out, it's auto saving.
Well,
Ah,
and on that same token, I'm gonna let it go on ahead and go swap to you. Um, on that same token, I I'm trying to skip as many interim steps as possible, um, because it takes a long time to produce, and I really only can. I mean, I can spare these 2 hours every day,
yeah.
but this is pretty much it. A
Mhm.
lot of time, like today, will be okay because I'll have some time after, but like this afternoon. But generally, once my kid comes home, everything changes. The entire, what we do changes and stuff like that. And once we get
Mhm.
out of school, my wife and my kid will both be here because my wife's a teacher, and so I've tried really hard, but it does it invariably it's a you're out of your show at 11, so at 11:03 we're going to go to the museum. Okay,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
great, but that means that I've got exactly 9 to 11 to work. So I'm cutting as many things out, and what I'm looking
Mhm.
at here is I wonder how much of story mode I can use
Hmm.
to sketch in everything starting from that point. So instead of, I mean, I'm almost tempted to say to go over here with the story mode thing
Hmm.
and um, like literally screen cap this this here and then do the sketches really quickly on these, just kind of
Hmm.
getting a flow sketch
Yeah, and you
going.
can zoom in on those to like adjust to make them the right size for you. So let me do that.
Can you
You can
draw
zoom in.
directly on these?
No, you have to open the page to actually draw on them. No, you could just grab a screen grab and then just throw it in like another document, and then you could
Mhm.
do that. So you can do
Yeah,
whatever.
that would be the fastest possible way to just get a rough in. And
Yeah,
I notice that with me, the smaller it
yeah,
is, the better.
definitely. That's really smart on paper, actually. I have. Do you know what Rocketbook is?
Yes.
I use Rocketbook for my initial layout
And
sketches
you
because I
nuke it
can.
every time you're done.
Yep. I
The
can nuke it
rocket
every
pages,
time I'm
you just
done.
nuke them and they're gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I can send it as a PDF directly to my email, and then I can download it. And because I can open PDFs in Clip Studio, I just open the PDF and then I copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, and then from there I can redraw or start editing from there. And so it's just a time saving feature that I use, so I don't have to scan or take a photo of every single thing. Like getting the Rocketbook like changed my workflow and made it so much easier to get that initial sketch phase done, and I can make them as big or small as I want. But I usually
Yeah,
just use like each page as its own, and I can like sketch out the page large and not feel bad about it. I go through a lot
sure.
of ink though, which
Yeah, I
sucks.
can
But
imagine. I can imagine, but I mean, well, but I mean, I'm that's actually not a bad thing. I'm kind of looking out to space because I'm thinking this here. I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, this wouldn't be a bad thing for me to go, say, hang out at Starbucks. Um,
mhm,
a couple of days ago, we were having a discussion about story flow and things like that. That I've been trying to make my stories just a little bit tighter because the way
mhm,
they kind of roll out has been a little rambly. I ramble a lot in my stories. Doesn't help any that I'm effectively making my own version of Star Trek. So you kind of have to
mhm,
have, a panel of them talking about reconfiguring the warp core using the dilithium matrix and the alternate, you've got to have them
mhm.
yammering to do the
Yeah.
thing, whatever is the thing, because it's a sci-fi with that style.
Mhm.
And so it's better to do what you're talking about because a lot of what you're saying is focus. I know Brent has to make that comment. The focus panel. I've not thought about the focus panel, but you're right. Every page sort of needs to have that point.
And
The
that's
point
what that
where,
this one and these two are like the most like if you get anything out of this page, she's pushing a boat into the water, she's pushing it out of the water. That's the most important things on these panels. Kind of in
right.
between, Aros is like the male here. He's sort of narrate. He's like giving his thoughts on everything, but you can still see. Oh, there's a fire. She's lighting something. She's pushing the boat out. Everything else is kind of like the stuff in between. And then like on the next page, oh, there's this huge thing that like why is this creature important? And then it says here like she set out to steal him and she underestimated him. Ooh, that's not bueno. So like if anything, it's this woman is pushing a boat out, the boat's lighting on fire, and oh, here's what happened to the woman. Like those, if there are like three things to get out of my first three pages, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And what I've kind of learned hanging out with some of my friends who are mangaka, like published mangaka in Japan, they're like you need to like be efficient. They're like they said within the first 4 to 5 pages you have to know exactly what the story is about. Like your whole chapter purpose has to be set within the first like 4 to 5 pages.
Yep.
And if it's not, then it's gonna look like you're rambling. Like it's gonna have no purpose. And so like every chapter needs a hook. Every volume needs a hook. Like you have to be constantly setting that hook and you have to be constantly like re grabbing their attention for things. and it's stressful almost to be like, is this interesting? Is this interesting? Is this interesting? Yeah,
Right.
it's
Right. Well,
it's.
and that's what makes manga attractive.
Mhm.
But I mean, and though that is all of that's very important and critical, you're not wrong. I There are a couple of manga that I can think of that don't actually pull that off as straight. Um,
Mhm.
One of my favorites, of course, is Meizani Koku,
I love this.
where Rumiko Takahashi actually slowed
Mhm.
down.
She does it a
Um,
lot, which is why I love her, and she still does it. The interesting thing to notice is, do you know the difference between sandangumi and yondangumi? No.
no,
Okay,
but I
cool.
mean, I'm guessing a little bit here. On one of them
So
is about a 3 point, and one of them is about a 4 point.
yeah, so there's two theories of school here in terms of paneling. There's one school of thought that breaks the grid down into two by threes. This is the modern way of doing it. This is sandan. Oh wow. Well, okay, you don't need two D's. Calm down.
Dan.
Sandangumi. Yeah, sandangumi. So there's two by three grids. This is the more modern way of doing things, kind of
Dan would
like.
be the word for, in this instance, like level or degree.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that looks like what they're heading here for.
Yeah, which is the average of about 4 to 6 panels a page. Yondangumi is obviously the opposite, where you've got two by four. I can't box today. And then basically what you do is you can create your panel format to be any combination of this. And what's interesting, this is why I brought it up, Rumiko Takahashi exclusively uses Yondangumi, which is the old way of working. It's considered the old way of working. So for
Hmm.
example, you can take these and set them up in any way that you want. So this would be a 2 by 4 format. Or you could split it up in a different way, where you could say, I've got, a panel that goes this way, up here, and then, like this. And it usually averages a higher panel count, usually, so it's more like 5 to 6,
Hmm.
usually, because there's more ways you can split it. But that's kind of the interesting thing is now, since I learned about that, when I'm reading manga, I'm like, are they using a 2 by 4 or a 2 by 3? And it's interesting, like, and you can actually see the easiest way to tell is usually you'll have panels stacked together. So this is a three. So this actually would be a three-way split. You've got three panels
Hmm.
high with a total of two wide. So you can manipulate it so that you can use different formats and you can know when to use a 2 by 3 or when to use a 2 by 4. But usually a mangaka will pick one and they'll use that and they'll be consistent throughout. I did not know that until like one of my manga friends explained that to me. She's like, "Why are you using the 2 by 4 system?" And I was, "What?
Wow.
What is this?" And so she explained it to me, and she's like, "You're using the 2 by 4." And I'm like, she's like, "Who are your favorite mangaka?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, all of those they use the 2 by 4 system. That's why." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know that."
I actually
And
did not know that either. I'm like
mhm.
sitting here going, well, now we've got manga theory going. And
Yeah, there's a whole theory that I had no idea about. Like there's theories and everything. Like even do you know what Masugu and Naname panels are?
no, 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 keep
So
going, keep going. I'm writing this stuff down, man. I'm just
all right,
writing
so
it
if you have square panels, these are Masugu. Massugu. Masugu. These are square panels where all of the corners are rectangular angle or they're 90-degree angles.
right.
And then you have
Hmm.
Naname panels, which are the ones that have angles. And the theory is when you have like a direction of flow. For me, it's right to left. You can use this flow or the corners to either tighten the action or like increase the lead, just like in regular comics. If you want something to feel like a character is like not wanting to do something, you can tighten the space around them by using a Naname panel to literally cut into their personal space. You can also use it to help increase the direction of flow. There's a really good example where in Toriyama's work where Vegeta flies up this way and then he flies back down. and they actually have the panel like this so that it funnels Vegeta going into this little corner here. So it like heightens the speed of his action by like literally making it look like he's going into a funnel. And it's so cool. So by using the corners, you can create action, you can create tension by it's just so wild. It's so cool. Another way to use Naname panels is, you say you've got like a bad guy and he's like looming over the person. You could have, and he's standing right here, and you've got your big bad guy, and he's like, oh, like I'm standing over you. You can, and then you can have like this little panel, and he's like, oh shit.
Right.
This is literally leaning into his personal space. And what that does is that helps create that tension there. And by adding those angular lines, it also just creates a more dynamic looking panel. Using those, then maybe have like a reaction panel here where like the crowd is watching and they're like, oh, what's going to happen? So what that does is that can build something. And then if you really want to make it look exciting, add a little panel here, just a little teeny one. If this is a left page, so this would be like the last page of the spread, you can maybe have like his fist clenching something, or maybe his eyes dart to the side to like make it exciting to go into the next page. And it has a name as well. It's called Mercury. I'm butchering my pronunciations here. This panel is called Mercury. It's the leading panel. Oh, no, sorry, Hiki. I'm sorry, I'm stupid. Hikigoma. I'm getting excited over myself here. This is Hikigoma. This is the leading panel. It leads into the next page. And the panel that comes after that, which would be the first panel on the next page, is usually, the reveal panel. We have this theory in comics too, but manga is a little bit more specific. You could have like, maybe he like runs forward, like he starts running forward, and then you have like a Ma panel of like the reaction of the bad guy, and it's just like a quick reaction, and then you see them fighting and clashing, da 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 da. So like that leads into now the battle that's exciting or whatever. So there's a whole. Oh, and this is called this one's called Mercury. This is the reaction. So this would be a right page if you're reading a traditional manga. So hopefully that was somewhat helpful and educational how you can use those 4 panel types together to create a really interesting like page turn and just dynamic pages. That was a lot of new words.
Yeah, no, I've been taking lots of notes all of a sudden.
And also, Guy, I have all of these written down in educational blogs. One of the things I do for Global Comics for my job is I actually create. I'm creating an educational program that's all about comics and manga, and so I have a blog series that I actually put all my thoughts into that teaches all these things. And I think I just covered this whole like.
Do you want to give me that link in the private chat, and I will put it up.
I'm grabbing that right now for you.
If you put it in the private chat, I can put it over on one of these doodly wops.
Oh yeah, I just covered hatching and the different hatching techniques. Let me grab my education tag here. Here we go. All right, I'll send this here.
Yeah, you can just bring up that private chat at the bottom there.
So I send it to you as well, just so that you also have it. And then private chat.
Because I'll put it up on the screen here in a second. There you go.
Yeah, I just sent it over that one so that you have it after restream. So now you've got it both ways. But yeah, so those have all my different blogs and such. They're called Creator Tips and Tricks, and I've just started doing creator interviews as well. And so all of these different articles here teach you. I've done everything from Kumawari to I said the English R. Whoops, don't butcher me, please. To like visual narrative and how camera angles work. Like I've done. Oh, I need to bring this over here.
Yeah, I just brought it up on my
my
screen.
Yeah, so I've got all the different blogs, the newest ones here on the bottom, even margins, bleeds and trims. like all the different names in manga for the different trim lines and bleed lines. Like, oh man, that was a trip learning about all of those. The story feature, how to break it down. So I even have a blog about that as well. So I post every other week to this blog series. So I just posted yesterday, which was my interview for Cody, who does he's the creator of Ironverse comics. He just had a successful campaign yesterday. It just ended yesterday. So I did a special article to help promote him. But yeah, so I kind of cover all of these different things. I try to make articles just for manga and articles just for comics because while they're similar, they have differences. Like a comic, like I know manga are technically comics, but when you get down to the theory of how they actually work, they're vastly different, which is why I get angry when people say, oh, manga comics are the same thing. No, they're not.
Right.
Theory is completely different. And
Well,
people don't
and
believe
that's the thing that I've been noticing when I look through what you're talking about, I do a lot of that instinctually, and I never knew why.
exactly, and that's the cool
I
part. Is
consumed a lot of manga, and I realized that even though I feel like part of that is why my stories aren't that tight. Hey, Pat.
hi Pat, what's
Um,
up?
and I've been thinking about this a lot when you talk about these things. I've been thinking about like my paneling and how I put the panels together on a page. I instinctually break into the naname format when
Mm-hmm.
things get intense.
Spicy.
Like I tend to do stayed blocks
Mm-hmm.
until we get intense, then I start breaking. But I didn't think about
Why?
cornering the character. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
you
literally
can
sticking
literally
the character in
corner.
the corner to give
Yep.
stress and make it feel
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable.
The
And I never thought
psychological
about
aspect of it. Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
so
there's
great.
like a lot of this that I'm going to be able to glean a lot of this and be able to do a lot of good work. So thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. No, you're welcome. That's kind of what I'm here for. Just to kind of show like the different and that's I did the same thing down here.
Uh-huh.
Where he's talking about like every panel zoomed in on her more in these three ones. Like they zoomed in, like he's getting closer, and then the last one you don't even see her anymore. I mean, I might change this one. I had it, but you know, either way, like that's where biggest way that I can tell a novice from someone who's not a novice is their paneling. Like that's the easiest thing to tell. Not even looking at the story. It's just like when you panel, do you pay like the other thing? Let me autosave. Damn it.
Yeah, we got to wait for autosave.
Okay, here we go. So here we go. So another thing is a lot of people don't realize how to use these margins, which is like the biggest dead giveaway if someone knows what they're doing or not. Are you familiar with all these different areas?
Yep. Yeah, our text safe and our graphics safe. That's the same in Western or Eastern comics.
The main
Um,
difference, though, in comics and manga is in comics, they'll still use this area in between, usually.
mhm.
And manga, they don't. They typically, when you have a two-page spread, this area is called nodo. No, come on, cat. Jeez. Nodo. I'm practicing. I still suck. I'm still learning. Sorry. Nodo. Um,
Nodo.
nodo. Yeah. So usually your panels will at your inner lines here. This area is common. So
And I
usually
feel
they'll
like a
stop.
lot of that, if you'll give me a second to swap,
Go for it.
a lot of that, whenever we talk here, let me go ahead and bring up my big camera, is because the tankobon, which is the
Mhm.
standard for Japanese comics, it's hard to get into that zone.
That's exactly why they do it. Yeah.
It's difficult. Although I've managed to, of course, get on multiple page spreads for each one of those, as an example. But like, it's hard to get into that zone.
Right. And a lot of
So
newer
whereas I'll
creators.
see people go full bleed on this side or this
Mhm.
side, you're
Right.
right. I'm not seeing anything go full bleed into the margin.
Mhm. It happens occasionally. Just depending on if you need that extra space, if you need like a full page spread or like a splash, like you can do it. It's definitely possible. If you need the extra space for effect,
Yeah.
do it. Like Mongo Call will do it, but it should be done intentionally. And that's like the biggest thing that like people will post their work in progress and their whole page just it just goes over like the whole thing. And I'm like, are you planning on printing? And if they say yes, then I'm like, oh boy, sit down, son. We need to have a
Right.
conversation because it's not going to work. Or to jump, they're wanting to submit to, or I mean, like jump rookie, they're wanting to submit to SMA. Like those things get printed, and so you guys have to consider how printing works. And then they whine and they groan and they don't want to think about it. And I'm like, do you guys know what a screen tone is? Do you know how they work? No. Do you know what a Moir pattern is? No.
Right.
Oh boy, sit down. Like, let's talk about it because like you have to consider these things. And all of the resources I've talked about are available online and they're easy to find. You
Right.
just have to for them. But then I also have sort of like the extra benefit of having friends who are Japanese mangaka, like Jump level that work for Jump, and they're willing to talk to me because I have, over the course of the last year, slowly infiltrated my way into their friend group.
Right.
And it's one of those things
Insinuated
where,
yourself. I would be a
yeah,
fly on this wall if that's okay with you.
and that's what I do. Like 90% of it is just me listening because what it is it's do you know the app Mokri?
I'm
It's
sorry, one
like
more time.
it's called Mokri,
Mukri.
Morcri. It's a Japanese focused app that you can bring people in and you can chat together and you have like a uniform, like it's just like Skype where you can talk to each other, but then you can also type. It's really similar to Skype, and his name is. I'm gonna give you a Twitter link to the person that I follow. For this, he's been an assistant on many Jump titles. He was an assistant for Naruto, Death Note, Shaman King, and right now he's working on Unsung Hero.
Hmm.
Um, and he hosts these sessions where anyone can come in, but the speaking is mostly Japanese only. Since I know you know more Japanese than I do, maybe you can actually talk to him. Um, so that there's the link there, Link Papa. His name is Atsuhiro or Akusan, and he posts all the time about resources. He sells books. He even makes assets for the Clip Studio Asset Store for backgrounds. He's a background artist, and that's what he does. And he actually has a studio dojo where he hires assistants to work for him on his various titles. And he's really cool. He's really happy. Like he's got tattoos and he laughs all the time. Like he's a really really chill guy.
I like how he
Um,
calls it Studio Atsu. Atsu?
Atsu,
Studio.
yeah, Atsu.
Yeah, Studio Atsu is what he's calling him.
Yeah, he's really funny. He's really chill. He's like my one of my biggest idols. And I bought his books that have his backgrounds in them so I can study them. And he desperately wants to work in the English market. And I'm like, if I had the money, I would hire you.
Right?
And he like I've offered to work for him, and he's like, oh, you don't have enough Japanese skill to work for me. And I'm like,
Wow.
that's
His
like
work is serious. I'm
yeah,
looking
and
through his
he
stuff
loves.
right now.
Yeah, like I can literally but that's what's cool about these sessions is if my friend who can translate for me is in there, he's totally willing if I send something to him and he'll give me feedback. When I was doing let's see which panel was it? This panel here that has the in here. He was able to give me feedback and say the perspective looked wrong, and he did a red line and then sent it back to me. He's like
Wow. You redlined?
yeah, he
Dang.
redlined for me. Just like a really quick, like where the horizon line should be, and like kind of what he did is he had like this, and then he drew out like where like it actually should be or whatever. And what I had, he's like, I would do this,
Hmm.
and then I was able to the finished one. He goes, that looks much better. Good job. And I was like, he said, good job. Like so and I mean this is where sometimes I'll try to use Google Translate, and it's fascinating to me because one of the things I struggle with is people going, oh well, you're an American trying to make manga. You can't make manga because you're American. And like I love it when we see people trying to make manga and then trying to speak to work with us. And they all like fucking I don't know if they're just nice to me because you know how they tend to be really nice on the surface and they may have different opinions, the whole Tatamaya thing. But every time I go in, everyone's going to give me feedback. Like we give feedback to each other. Like even I am welcome to give feedback to someone if they ask. And I
Hmm.
can't even
Hmm.
speak Japanese that well. So like it's just a group that can come in and you can just hang out and talk to each other and offer feedback. But since he also runs like a assistant dojo basically, studio is the word. He uses the word dojo, but it's studio. He like his assistants that are working for him are also in there. And so you get to listen to the chatter. And I don't tell them this, but I have an app going that translates what they're saying.
Right.
So I
Hey,
usually can get a rough idea of what they're saying.
hang on real quick, Kat. So, Donald, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you later. Pat,
Bye,
this is
Donald.
a buddy of mine who I met a while ago when I was working in a large art collective, and she works out in. You're in Tennessee now, yes?
Yeah.
But you work for.
I work for
You've
Global
worked.
Comics.
Work with Global Comics, which, but you're also a mangaka, which
Yeah.
is important because we're both sort of in the same style of art. You had
Mhm.
said earlier, and this is true as well. Manga is the Japanese style of art, of comic writing. It
Mhm.
does have a very distinct, different feel, and
Mhm.
and you actually today have been doing some phenomenal explanation of how the way that the mangaka do panels is different, the way that the styling of it is different. It has a different style. It's not just a we do it only in black and white. There's
Mhm.
more to it than that. um
Mhm.
so anyway, so that's who's going on. Pat had asked, hope
Oh,
you
thanks,
have a
Pat.
great. Yes.
I
um
actually, people say that it's interesting because I hate my voice when I listen to it. It's like a weird,
Oh,
mellowy.
everybody does. Everybody does. I
Yeah.
have this rich, deep voice that sounds exactly like my father's voice. Then I listen to the recordings, and I sound all pitched up like this. And
Yeah.
I'm like, and I don't sound anything like my dad. And I loved my dad's voice. My dad had this very deep baritone voice. It was great. And I aspired to have a voice like his.
Mhm.
And I don't. Which is all right.
Yeah, I
Pat
feel
is
like
my
it
dad's
sounds.
brother, and so like
Yeah.
when I say that, Pat knows exactly what I'm talking about. That
Yeah.
voice was superb. I actually, before
Mhm.
he passed away, I had him record a bunch of things for me, including um, I had him do, you have an incoming call from so and so. You have an incoming call, so that my phone now, the ringtones are all my dad saying,
Oh,
this is a
nice.
call from Maya. This is a call from. So that's really
That's
cool.
that's really funny. That's awesome. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm going to keep him forever, but it does, I think, unnerve people a little bit when I'm around like family, because he just passed away last year, so I think it's
right.
still a little unnerving for everybody. He looked and sounded like James Bond. He did. He looked like Sean Connery,
That's
and he
amazing.
sounded a lot like Sean Connery, except with a Southern accent instead of a
Mhm.
Scottish one. So there's
Right.
that. So
But yeah, so that's kind of like the impact. Other thing I want to show you guys. Do you know what the mapping pen is?
the mapping pen. No, I have no idea what the mapping pen. Well,
You're gonna
maybe
love
I do,
this.
but show us anyway.
So this is the probably the last thing I'm going to show you guys because I gotta get ready for my meeting. And I know you got to do your ending spiel. So
Yep.
we have a variety of different tools available to us. We have like our G pen, which tends to have like that weird like blobby end. And
Hmm.
then you have the mapping pen. And the reason why I'm using this panel is that's how I did a lot of my leaves. You can get like a lot of really good sharp points with it. Let me turn off this text really quick that it's in the way. So with our mapping pen, you get all of these really nice sharp points starting at the end. You kind of create like these really nice leaves, and you can use it for. It's great for hair if you're doing like the highlights for hair. It's really great for that as well. I have my stabilizer on really high
Yeah, I
for this.
usually turn my stabilizer on really high too.
Yeah, so that even
Mapping.
if I'm going really slow, I can get like these really, really nice points. And like, look at this leaf that I drew. It's so pretty. Um, but yeah, so like I was able to. That's how I did a lot of. Some of these plants are like preamps, and then some of them like you can
Oh
have.
man,
Yeah, it's
I
just
like
using
the
the mapping
mapping
pen.
thing.
Isn't it nice? Like it's like that because everyone complains about getting those sharp points, and I know you had talked about that in the last one, so I wanted to be sure to show you this tool this time. Is you can
I'm
get
going to
those.
move the mapping pin over to my tools.
Yeah, it's super nice. I absolutely love the mapping pen. You can get those really really nice clean lines, clean points. Like even if you kind of like pick up abruptly, like this still looks really nice, and I picked it up really like abruptly. You still get that really nice clean point.
Right,
The higher the stabilizer, the better it'll look. Um, but I mean, if you that's the problem with the stabilizer is it can slow down your pen sometimes, which can be really frustrating. Like even when I slowed down here and I had this really, like abrupt stop, like it still came to like a really nice fine point. That's
right,
the
right,
mapping
right. Right. Well, that's been sort of my ongoing. We've discussed this. That's been my ongoing problem for a while. Is when I'm using these pins, I'll get those blobs that sort of show
Mhm.
up where it was thick and then it trails off to a point like that, and I end up with
Yeah,
this effect, which I
right.
don't like.
So
The
for that,
mapping
I use
pin, I still get that, but I do like the fact that I can just stay calm on this and I don't get as much of a problem with that control.
that. Yeah.
So
Hopefully that can help out.
I think so too. That definitely looks like it's done. But I like when you do that, I can actually see what the style is there.
I've got more practice with it though. Like I've got such a. I think because I'm so used to inking with a brush because I use that Pentel Pocket brush for so long, I'm used to manually doing those things. And so now translating it to digital has taken a little bit of time, but for the most part, like I'm able to just do exactly what I used to do, just do it digitally. Um, so I feel like I've had more practice in that sense with this particular mapping pen tool. I've been using it for a while, and it was actually Atsu that taught me how to do like all the different leaves and stuff. Like he actually had like some videos that he did showing like, hey, here's how I do this, and I was like, and he, by the way, Atsu is 100% traditional,
Hmm.
and I'm like,
Yeah. Well, that's kind of why I Brian. I was going to bring Brian in here. I was hoping he'd show up, but he didn't show up.
mhm,
I was hoping he'd show up here, but he's also literally using an ink pen and quill or ink pen and an ink pot at this point,
a
and
G
he's
pen.
trying to translate over to Clip Studio.
Mm.
Um, and it's
I'm not watch the
yeah, he's
video.
having a hard time with it. So I was kind of thinking
Mhm.
that would be kind of also cool.
Hey, if he
Um,
wants to talk to me about it, I'm happy to do a sit down session with him and over like Discord or something similar or whatever. If he
sure.
wants that, like let him know. I'm happy to help because literally helping people is like my job now. Being in community at Global Comics and I also stream on YouTube. I've not streamed a lot lately. I've been really bad about that. But I don't mind helping and that's what I do. Okay, I've got 1 minute until my meeting, so I
Yeah,
need
I
to
was going to
go.
say I gotta let you go. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll do one of these again. Yes, I can draft you again at some point. You there? Did I lose you? Oh no, down to one network connection out. Oh no. This is a bad time for Cat to drop. If you guys can still hear me, because I've still got 4 green bars. Appreciate you joining me, Cat. I know that you've got to go to your meeting, so you can go on ahead and just drop at any point here, and that's okay. Um, so just going ahead and and drop on out. And thank you for joining me. There you go. And then for everybody else, I appreciate you guys all being here. That was a great show with a lot of good information. So yeah, I had Donald on here. I had Pat. I see Brent. I appreciate all you guys showing up. Let's see. Who do we have? Anybody else on here? Just you three. It looks like. So for everybody else who joined, because I see that I've got 5 viewers. So for all of you guys who are watching, thank you very much for joining me, and I appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll be working some more on Airship 27, and we'll be continuing on with that. Again, thank you for my guest, Kat, who is here. I'll bring up her what's it's one more time so you can see it. There's the blog that Kat was using. So thanks, Kat. You're awesome. And for everybody else, I'll see you tomorrow, and keep your eyes on the stars. Goodbye.
Computer, good night.